Welcome to this edition of Finance in 5 Minutes presented by Stratfield Solutions. Today we're going to be using Microsoft Excel to find the internal rate of return or IRR, so let's jump right in. So for an overview of this formula, we use the internal rate of return or IRR to determine the profitability or financial return of investments or specific cash flows or revenue streams. So where you have multiple cash flows, you can use the IRR to find out what discount rate sets the NPV equal to 0. And that is also one of the definitions of IRR. So again, IRR is the discount rate, which sets the net present value to 0. You can do this by hand, but it does take a few steps. And the more cash flows you have, the more complex the calculation is. But Excel has a super easy formula to use, and so we're going to leverage that here in our example. So some tips and cautions in using this formula. It's advisable to list the cash flows in a row or a column without any blank cells. If there's no cash flow in a period, meaning it's 0, you should indicate that with a 0. The other recommendation is not to reference cash flows across ranges, meaning if you are using row 2 in an Excel file for your cash flows, don't then also try to select cells with cash flows on rows 3 or 4. It's better to keep a consistent cash flow so that you don't accidentally select cash flows that don't apply to your analysis. The other tips or caution here is to include all cash flows, including the year 0 cash flow. Usually this is a cash outflow in a lot of practical applications or in academic questions that get asked. This is unlike the NPV formula, which we have a video on as well, but you do want to ensure you select all of the cash flows, including year 0. Finally, when you get to the end, expand the resulting percentage to 2 decimal places for better accuracy. Much better to say 15.25% than it is to say 15%. Quick review of the formula syntax. This is a really short formula. The IRR formula in Excel is just equal sign, IRR, and then there's 2 inputs. The first input is values. The values are just the cash flows that you're evaluating. So you'll select the range of the cash flows. And then finally, you'll see that guess is in brackets, meaning that it's an optional input. I've never used it. It can speed up Excel if you have a very large number of cash flows. If you have a guess as to what the IRR might be, you can put it in there and Excel will start to evaluate the function and cash flows from that point rather than just starting from scratch. So it can speed things up, but again, haven't really used that to any benefit. So with that, you have enough information to go and review the practical exercise. So let's take a look at Excel. So here we are in Microsoft Excel, and a practical application question is, a project requires a $100 investment today and will generate cash flows of $30 per period for the next 4 periods. What is the IRR of this investment? Again, you could go ahead and solve this by hand, but we're going to use that Excel function to solve this IRR. So in this box here, you'll notice one of the tips and cautions that I mentioned earlier is we have listed the cash flows all in the same row. This will make it much easier to select this range when I type in the IRR function than it would be if, for example, I had put 100 in this cell, 30 in this cell. It's not worth trying to select it. It's much easier. Plus, if you send this file to anybody, it's going to be a lot easier for them to comprehend. So back to the function, you'll type equals IRR, open parentheses. Here are our 2 inputs that we talked about earlier. Selecting the cash flows, including a period 0 all the way through the end. Again, since the guess is an optional input, you don't need to include it. You can close the parentheses, hit enter. My Excel has already defaulted to 2% percentage points. So here, the IRR of this investment would be 7.71%. You can select more cash flows if you like, or less if you only have a period or 2. but this is how to use IRR in Excel. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to us at Stratfield Solutions for more finance and Excel videos. Take care.